Welcome to Rule 8 Politics with Jeremy and Zach. This is the show where we always tell the truth, where we at least don't lie. We'll always fix our errors whenever we make them, although it will probably be very rarely when that happens because we're very smart. We are smart dudes here. And we're here just to talk straight politics with you. Uh, we'll discuss the news of the week every week. And this was a hell of a week. We had a sitting governor, Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She was almost kidnapped by a group called the Wolverine Watchmen. Um, Jeremy, first of all, how you feeling? And what was your reaction when you first heard about this?
Um, yeah, it's a wild story. I think my first reaction was probably not the correct reaction, but my initial thought was like, wow, I wonder what the FBI did to coerce these people into do something so crazy and stupid, right?
Yeah.
Like I wonder what these folks' plan was. Like, all right, so we kidnapped the governor. Now what? Right? How do you go from that to like making any
So,
positive change or anything like that? It's a completely far-fetched plan.
so you were thinking at first that the FBI was pulling the strings and trying to get this group to kidnap her? Like,
They definitely do have a history of doing stuff like that.
really?
Yeah. FBI will try to find these individuals that have these tendencies for violence or do something outlandish, and then they'll be like, hey, if you want to blow this building up, hey, I know a guy out back who's got ammonium nitrate, and I'll hook you up, and then
Yeah.
show up to get it, and boom, you're busted. However, after putting in 2 minutes of actual thought into this, no, it was more likely that these folks they pieced together a very terrible plan that was doomed for failure, and they just allowed themselves to be infiltrated by the FBI very easily, and they thwarted their plan before they did something stupid.
Thank God. That's the last thing that we would have needed before this election. That would have really made an already chaotic scene much more chaotic. Um, this was being planned, I read, in the basement of a vacuum shop. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, under a
Like,
rug and a trapdoor.
I've always been suspicious of those like old appliance stores. Like, what are they really doing in there? They can't get by just by selling vacuums, right? But I don't think the actual owner of the store got into any trouble. Like, he supposedly didn't know what was going on. This was all just taking place in his basement that you had to enter through like what looked like a trap door in the floor of the store. A lot of rhymes there.
Yeah, maybe he was the one wearing the wire.
Yeah, who
Maybe took a
knows?
plea deal.
Yeah. Who knows? Um, but 13 men were arrested, is what we know, and they call themselves the Wolverine Watchmen. At first, they were talking about the Michigan Militia, which I guess is a separate group, or maybe a broader term, just to talk a little about militia groups that operate within Michigan. Supposedly, the state has a history of it. Um, I don't know if you got any information on that at all, but I think a lot of the information in this case is still coming out, so we're not exactly sure what all the details were and everything. But one thing that is for sure is that militia groups around the country are on the rise. It's a scary thing right now, and it's kind of, in my opinion, a reaction to a general state of lawlessness. People aren't trusting the cops anymore. They're not they're not. They don't want to rely on the government. They're very. There's this strong, I guess you could call it a resistance movement. Whether you're on the left and you're resisting Trump and what you consider to be fascism, and there's this equally strong resistance movement that's kind of on the right too, that's a resistance to what they see as government overreaches and the rise of socialism. And this group was really a right wing organization that saw Governor Gretchen Whitmer as somebody who was really abusing her powers, especially relating to the shutting down of the state due to COVID. Um, so I don't know. I know
Right.
I threw a lot out there, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess let's talk about why would these folks consider the governor to be a tyrant, right? So,
Yeah.
what were the conditions that led them to, I guess, tell or believe for themselves to believe that she had to be taken out? Um, and so, I'm not sure if it started really so much before the pandemic, but
Mhm.
there was tons of backlash from the lockdown order, from the mask mandate,
Yeah.
and there's I think like 20 different recalls against the governor that were filed. Um, I remember I got wind of like a large right wing protest movement back when they did what they called Operation Gridlock, which I think
Mm.
was in early April, which were a bunch of people showed up in Lansing, Michigan, in their vehicles and just gridlocked
Okay.
the
Yeah, I didn't
streets
know that
there.
was the name of it, but yeah, I remember that. That was like before the George Floyd protests, and these were people that were basically they were armed, right? And I mean, I think at first it was just like car parades that were just they were honking their horns, sitting in their cars, and then they escalated a bit where they actually were going into government buildings with weapons and stuff, right? Am I just
Yeah,
imagining that? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Those are two separate things. But yeah, the second one where they stormed I forgot what government building it was. I think it might have been the Capitol. But yeah, that was. I mean, like, man, I was like, shit's different in Michigan, right? Like,
Yeah.
evidently. Um, I know militias have always been kind of an important part of the culture and very pro Second Amendment. But
Mhm.
to when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's definitely a show of force, right? Like, I'm not sure. I'm, it's hard to view that what they did as something that wasn't a direct threat, right?
Right.
So I mean, sure, like they got these 13 guys, but the actions of storming the Capitol building definitely emboldened their ideologies
Hmm. Yeah,
in terms of like
it's like
what's seen as
if we can get away with this, if we could just storm this building without any recourse, what else can we do? What can we get away with next?
right.
So you can almost see them just trying to up the ante a little bit. Um, but like I think you already kind of said, there were reasons, and I'm putting in quotations here, air quotations, reasons for them wanting to kidnap the governor. Um, other than the mask mandate, and I guess shutting down of businesses, was there anything else particular that you came across as to why they felt she was abusing her powers?
No, I did not. Those are like the two
Yeah.
big ones. They thought that using her executive authority was an overreach. I think the Michigan Supreme Court did strike down her extension of the lockdown.
Hmm.
So I guess perhaps there was some validity that it wasn't an overreach of power. But I think, man, I think it's important. I remember how I felt when I saw Operation Lockdown, and like there was a tons of backlash from people on the left saying like like look at these idiots, like I can't believe they're not social distancing, I can't believe they're out in the streets,
Yeah.
like they did everything to criticize and tear them down, but like the reason these people took to the streets was like their livelihoods were taken from them.
Hmm.
Right? So they had a point, like the government shuts down your business and say, hey, too bad.
Yeah.
There is a legitimate reason to be angry about that, and
Hmm.
like the lack of empathy from the left whenever they did that, I thought was very disturbing.
Yeah, I remember that too. And a lot of people on the left are advocating for direct payments or types of loan forgiveness and rent freezes and whatnot. Um, and I understand all of that, especially when we're going through this through a pandemic. Um, and then not to be able to connect the dots as to why these people were protesting way back when, protesting the shutdowns and the forced closing of businesses, how they couldn't connect that to a lack of, okay, we're going to shut down your business, but we're going to pay all your expenses too. There was no follow through from the government. Had there been that follow through, which really was a lot of the things that the left wanted,
Mhm.
um, they would have made natural allies, but that never really happened. It was kind of bizarre.
It was. It's I mean, it's a man. This is where you get into the moral ambiguity of the situation, and like, did was was Whitmore deserving to be kidnapped and murdered? Absolutely not.
No.
No, but did she do everything that she could have to prevent something from like that actually taking place? Did she address the needs of her people in an adequate manner? Like, I think if you got people getting together and conspiring to kidnap and murder you, you're probably fucking up pretty bad as a governor,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it's a
Like that's
sign
like
that
that's
you're not doing things very well.
right. I mean, like, everybody. I mean, sure, like the left and the right never agree very rarely, especially on on huge topics, but you don't often see him calling for the like literal abduction of the opposition party.
Hmm.
So I mean, could she have done a better job? Yeah, I absolutely do, and
Yeah.
yeah, my heart goes out to the people of Michigan that have had to suffer with very lacking in their leadership.
Yeah. You can't just tell people you have to stay home and then that's that. I mean, if you're doing that, if you're taking away their livelihoods, you have to at least at the same time give them the means to get by, give them the money to continue paying their bills, meet their obligations, or somehow put their obligations on pause. I'm talking about financial obligations, of course, rent freezes. I mean, as a student, an ex-student, I have a ton of student debt, and the government thankfully did freeze student loans. But really, I believe that only, I could be wrong here, believe that really only impacted people who have federal student loans. So if you refinanced and you're now paying Discover instead of the government,
Right.
um, I don't know if that freeze impacted you or not. I really don't know the answer on that, but just something that kind of came to mind. Yeah, if the point I'm trying to make is, if the government really should stay away from mandates. All people, you have to do this, follow what I say. But if you do, you have to give them the means necessary to follow that mandate. You can't just say you can't go to work anymore. You have to stay home and you have to continue paying all your bills. I mean, that's just a recipe for the peasants to revolt, to grab the pitchforks and storm the Capitol. And that's essentially what almost happened.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think when even something as simple as a mask mandate. I think if sure, and we are definitely in a position now where masks are much more readily available, but I think I think we've briefly discussed it, maybe not on air, but there was a mask program that the Trump administration almost did, where they were just gonna blanket mail every address in America, um, 5 reusable cloth masks.
Yeah.
And like, why they pulled the plug on that program is beyond me. It would have been such a if you want to give the impression that they're taking the pandemic seriously, or like really actively doing something about it. My God,
Yeah.
that's
That's
like
something that I wish one of these reporters would ask the Trump administration about. I haven't heard anybody ask them about that specific proposal that was scratched. But yeah, they were going to send everybody in the country masks, universal basic masks, essentially, and then they scratched it at 11 o'clock, basically. It's just kind of beyond me. But I mean, it just further demonstrates the lack of seriousness that this administration, the Trump administration, they have not addressed this virus in a very serious manner, and they're still not. I mean, this week, just watching Trump and Washington politics, it was just kind of like a roller coaster with I mean, the debates. First of all, they've canceled the next set of Trump. The second Trump Biden debate has been canceled because Trump doesn't want to do it virtually, and of course, Biden doesn't want to do it in person because the guy he's debating has the coronavirus. I mean, it's pretty understandable. I wouldn't want to be standing on the same stage as somebody who's infected with the coronavirus. So, the Commission on Presidential Debates wanted to do a virtual one, and Trump he wants to do it in person, and now I think he's going to hold some kind of event at the White House, an in-person event instead of a debate. It's just crazy. He had an in-person event there today. He had a little speech on the front lawn, I think.
Wait, which also isn't that in violation of a bunch of stuff, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was a campaign rally, essentially, a mini rally on the lawn of the White House. You can't use the White House as a campaign tool,
right? Yeah. So it's law and order.
Yeah, right. But not for me.
Yeah. So, do you think pulling the plug on the second debate, number one, doesn't matter, and number two, do you think this actually works in Trump's benefit or not?
Well, it's an interesting question because right now the polls are showing that Biden and Harris have a lead. Usually, it's the team that's not winning that wants to get out there and debate. So I'm not really understanding the Trump angle here all that much. But typically, if you're down in the polls and election day is around the corner, you want to have debates and you want to be aggressive, and usually you want to try to make the other side not look as good, and by kind of being a baby. That's how I see this. He's not getting his way. He wants an in-person debate, and it's his way or the highway. Frankly, he's acting like a baby here, and I don't see how that's gonna help Team Trump. Maybe they're trying to delegitimize the whole debate process to some extent, but I don't know how well that's going to work, to be honest with you. Especially after I thought the Pence-Harris debate was pretty smooth overall. So I don't think the takeaway from that was that these debates are illegitimate or anything. They only seem to be pointless when Trump is in them, frankly. So I don't see the Trump angle here, and I think it helps Biden if that the debate's been canceled.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes Trump look weak, and also makes him look like a hypocrite too. Just go back you can even just 2 weeks ago, but really a month ago, when he was really hammering how it was absurd that the debates were so close to the election day, and that they should have more of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's the one backing out of.
And he was basically saying that casting doubt on whether Biden would even show to the debate. Right now, it's him that basically was refusing to do a virtual one, and then the commission just canned the whole thing.
Right. I mean, and they declared, he was, or to assume or claim that he was going to be mistreated or treated unfairly here. I mean, Trump is always the fucking victim, right?
Yeah.
Like, like what? Like, have you ever heard Trump say like very rarely will Trump say anything positive about anyone or anything. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the whole entire world is against the man, even though he's the strongest fucking man on the planet. You know, he's still always the victim, never
Yep.
treated fairly.
Yep. um. Yeah, he's just he's a nut. You think that medication, the dexamethasone, has been messing with him at all? And
I mean, who knows, man? I mean, his behavior is so erratic and crazy anyway. His speech today, he did mostly seem like himself. You know, I thought. Um,
uh,
I think maybe I mean, he seemed a little more amped up than usual, but you know, maybe it's just because of the election's so close, and I don't know. I I have not seen any like conclusive evidence, in my opinion, that it has remarkably changed his state of mind. What do you think?
I mean, I think the whole stimulus talks this week were such a roller coaster that I'm wondering if the medication played into that a little bit. I mean, because I mean, he was in the hospital last Saturday tweeting. He says, I have it written down here. Our great USA wants and needs stimulus. Work together and get it done. Thank you. He throws in the classic Trump thank you at the end of everything. And that was Saturday in the hospital. I think on Monday he goes back to the White House, and the next day on Tuesday he tweets. This is right after the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, basically made it. He was speaking at some kind of event that got a lot of coverage, and he made the case that we need more fiscal stimulus. The federal government, the Congress, and the president need to work hand in hand with the Federal Reserve, which the Federal Reserve does monetary policy, the federal government does fiscal policy. They need to work hand in glove in tackling the economic fallout from the coronavirus. And he was basically saying we need another stimulus package. That same day, Trump sends out a tweet directly contradicting what he just said a few days earlier, saying that I'll read the whole thing. Nancy Pelosi is asking for $2.4 trillion to bail out poorly run, high crime Democrat states, money that is in no way related to COVID-19. He may have a point there. We made a very generous offer of $1.6 trillion, and as usual, she is not negotiating in good faith. I am rejecting their request and looking to the future of our country. I have instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hardworking Americans and small businesses. So we go from Trump wants a stimulus, and it's kind of a big deal because in general, it's the Republicans in the Senate that are more skeptical of spending and a stimulus. Democrats want it, the Republicans don't. It seems like Trump is more on the side of the Democrats here, where he wants a stimulus, but he doesn't want to bail out the Democrat states, that the poorly ran Democrat states. So then the market took a nosedive right on that
God.
news, like in the middle of the day. And this is a president who has basically said, you could judge his performance based on the performance of the S&P 500. And within 24 hours, he starts tweeting, like, yes, we do need a stimulus. I take it back.
Yeah, standalone
yeah.
stimulus, standalone bailout for the airlines.
Mm-hmm.
And then yes, the market did recover very quickly. But man, would it fucking tank like that? It's just like, God, when he said that they were calling off stimulus talks, I was fucking pissed, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was to say I was angry is to put it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just pure politics. It's not caring for the American people. I mean, regardless of how this would affect the election, should not come into play on whether or not a bill gets passed or not. I mean, especially when you're talking about aid for Americans who really need the aid right now. I mean, we've still got a lot of people unemployed, underemployed, people who just businesses that are still shut down. I mean, the airlines, we just had another round of layoffs. Disney just announced a ton of people they're laying off. Same thing with the airlines, as PPP loans are starting to run out. So yeah, first he tweets that he would immediately approve $25 billion for airline payroll support, $135 billion for paycheck protection program for small businesses. Both of these will be fully paid for with unused funds in the CARES Act. Have the money, I will sign it now. And then he sends another tweet saying that if I am sent a standalone bill for stimulus checks, $1,200, they will go out to our great people immediately. I am ready to sign right now. Are you listening, Nancy? So that would basically be a repeat of the $1,200 checks that most Americans got earlier in the year.
Yeah, yeah. I think the Democrats should take the deal. Like, there's no downside to taking this deal whatsoever. Like, I don't think there's no political points to gain by pushing it off, and there's no political points to lose by agreeing to do it. And then on top of that, it's like you take the deal now. You're planning on winning the election in November anyway. So the Democrats are also planning on taking the Senate too. So you run game come November, which, I mean, look at fucking less than a month away. Well, from November, then of course people don't get inaugurated to January, whatever have you. But you're going to be elected into power. You're going to have the position to pass whatever legislation that it is that you want to do. So go ahead and take this deal now and expand upon it later.
Yeah. There's no reason why they shouldn't take that deal. Especially just the standalone checks, I think, is the simplest thing. And I think that after the last round of direct checks that they sent out, a lot of good data came out of that, showing that it really helped people out. I think that should be a pretty bipartisan thing. So I think right now, so then I think they adjusted their numbers a little bit at the end of the week. They got closer, but not perfect. And now Trump is saying that he wants to go real big, like bigger than both the Democrats and the Republicans want to do. So it seems like there may be an issue with getting the Senate to take on whatever bill the House may pass. But it looks like Trump would be willing to sign a Democrat-sponsored relief package, I would think, as long as it doesn't include bailing out these poorly ran Democratic cities and states. I think.
Yeah, I think at least that is the narrative that's being told in the news story, right? So, and if that's what it comes down, if that's what's going to come down to, like the make or break point of this bill, then yeah, let's worry about it later. Is it something that needs to be addressed later on? Perhaps, because if we don't, what's the alternative? But yeah, if that's going to be what stands in the way between hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people getting the help that they need, then man,
yeah,
it's pathetic.
All right, should we move on to the debate?
Yeah, let's talk about that. That was the debate was fun. It was not as many fireworks as there was in the first presidential debate, but I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought they both did fairly well. In my opinion, I could not really determine who was a clear winner or clear loser, right? I think you kind of have to watch and see how the polls change afterwards to see who won and who lost. And the polls were basically relatively unchanged. So with that being the case, I would say Kamala won because they didn't lose any ground. So, but the debate itself I think it wasn't exactly quite what I was expecting either. And if anybody saw the last video, my prediction was this debate was going to be policy, 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 and we did definitely get some more policy compared to the first presidential one. But I think what became clear and evident to me is that the Biden administration is severely lacking on policy clarification
Yeah.
and on some very important topics that they should have that shit like nailed down to a science. And most importantly, the subject on the Supreme Court, whether or not they're going to pack it or not.
Mm-hmm.
To not have a clear answer on that, of what your administration plans to do, is beyond me right now. And Joe Biden dodging the question so many times. It's like today, a reporter asked him, do the American people deserve to know what your position is? And he said, no, they don't. Like, what?
Wow.
So
It's infuriating.
yeah.
You know,
So,
yeah. When that came up during the debate, that was probably like the one time where I kind of got a little bit pissed off, to be frank, because they keep on dodging this question, and it's very important. You know, frankly, the way I feel about it is I don't think they should be packing the Supreme Court. But even if they do, and that's legitimately their plan, I'd much rather them just give it to me straight, you know. And honestly, the lack of clarity on that, I mean, they know what they want to do. They just don't want to say it. That's the thing.
I don't know,
And the
maybe
fact
they
that
don't.
they're not, the lack of transparency is a bigger deal to me than them potentially wanting to pack the court. I understand why they would want to pack the court. It's logical. This is the result of Republicans playing politics in 2016 by not giving Merrick Garland a hearing. You know, the Republicans really rigged the court in a way. So this is the Democrats trying to get even. You know, I not a fan of packing the court, but I understand it, and they didn't start this fight. So I mean, if they were just open about their intentions and transparent, I could get past that and still potentially vote for Joe Biden. But you know, the fact that they're not giving us the truth here, you know, they're not abiding by Rule 8, is kind of a real piss off.
Yeah. I think it could. I think the potential could exist that they actually don't know what they want to do yet.
Then just say it. Just say it. We don't know. We haven't decided
Right.
it
Well,
yet.
yeah. Unfortunately, in today's political spectrum, yeah, that's not an option. You know, you always have to appear to be fully in control. Why he wants to be so secretive about it or come off as even conspiratorial is disturbing. But yeah, I think maybe they don't know. Maybe their handlers haven't told them what their position is going to be yet, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely concerning. It's but then again, maybe he doesn't have to. It's his poll numbers aren't if his poll numbers were dropping, I'm sure they would have a plan real quick, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the lack of clarity, if anything, may be a cause for polls to drop. I mean, right now, all the hardcore Trump Republicans, they think that the Bidens want to pack the court because that's what the Trump people have been saying. And there's a good chance that they're right, So, I mean, even if Biden and Harris come out and say, hey, we decided we're not going to pack the court, they're not going to convince those people to say, oh, okay, you know what? I will vote for Joe Biden. That's just not going to happen. But the people who are on the fence, like I'm kind of a swing voter traditionally, I kind of do think I know who I want to vote for, but I'm kind of I'm middle of the field or whatever you call it, and something like just not being honest with the people, not telling the truth, trying to mislead on something that's so important, I think is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, well, I guess at least he's not lying, I suppose. It's he could say no, I'm not going to stack the court, and then get elected, and then stack the court. That maybe that would have been.
I guess so.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's a topic that shouldn't even be a topic. Like, what is the position on the court stacking in the Biden administration? Like that shouldn't even be up for discussion. Like we should know exactly what they're going to do and what their plan is and how to achieve it.
Hmm. You could say what you want about Trump, but regarding the Supreme Court, he's been the most transparent of like I think any president we've ever had. Before he was even elected, he had a list of potential nominees for the Supreme Court, and that list has been vetted. It's been um, he doesn't know the people on the list. Let's be frank here. They were recommended by think tanks and people
Yeah, yeah.
who do know these judges and whatnot. I mean, yes, they
Yes,
are. They do have a conservative tilt, no doubt about it. But it is a well thought up list of people who have been vetted, and the Heritage Foundation wouldn't be saying, Trump, you should nominate this person who has a whole history of bad stuff that the Democrats could really make a big deal out of. That's not happening. I mean, I guess it kind of did happen with the Kavanaugh case, but I mean, he was vetted before that. You know what I mean? I'm kind of
yep.
trying to take back my own words here a little bit, but the point is, he's been pretty transparent with who he possibly would nominate, and that is something that I think future presidents, Biden or anyone else who runs in the future, should consider doing. I mean, it's more information that the American people have, the better. I think it helps us really make up our decisions on who to vote for. And I'd like to know who Joe Biden, if he's going to pack the court, what are some names that you're potentially thinking of, who may be put on the bench?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's usually most administrations I believe in past election cycles that they do have a list of who they would put on the Supreme Court like available by now.
I don't think it's something that past administrations have really done. I mean, I could be very wrong on that. Maybe you're right, but I think that I really thought that this was something that Trump did that was kind of unprecedented.
Hmm. It could be. Yeah, I could be completely wrong there.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll
but
look that up next time. Next time,
yes.
we'll give you the answer on that.
But back to the debate. What did you think of Mike Pence's performance?
Good. So I thought in a vacuum, if this was held in a vacuum, Mike Pence won. But of course, it wasn't held in a vacuum. It was held in the context of a larger race between Trump and Joe Biden, and people are really voting for Trump or Joe Biden, not Harris or Pence. And the polls were already favoring Harris and Biden. I thought both Harris and Pence did a good job. I thought they both demonstrated that should something happen to the president, they would be able to perform the duties as president. I felt like they both reassured the American people, which was really what their job was to do during the debate. But I felt that the bar was a little bit lower for Pence because he's kind of connected to Trump, and based off Trump's past debate performance, where most people widely considered him to be the loser of. He's also attached to Trump and all the mistruths that Trump speaks frequently, and I mean, we got this botched coronavirus situation going on, and I just felt like the bar was a little bit lower for Pence, and he's been very quiet. I mean, I had a friend say to me that he thinks that this was the first time he ever heard Mike Pence speak. And I think a lot of people felt like that. They had never heard Pence speak before, despite the fact that he was actually a radio show host in the late 90s. So, I mean, he's actually a pretty good speaker, as we all found out, and a good debater as well. I felt like he surprised a lot of people. He was very smooth. He was very just kind of to the point and was able to back up the policies of the Trump administration. Um, he was kind of the he kind of like completed Trump in a weird way where they're like polar opposites in a way. And I felt like that really made the Trump administration look pretty good. But like I said, I thought Harris had a pretty good debate as well. But just she did what she had to do. She looked like a vice president. She acted, like a vice president should. But again, this is a race between Biden and Trump. And if anything, in the grand scheme of things, Harris won because she showed people, look, I could be vice president. Should I have to be? And even though I think, strictly Pence versus Harris, Pence won that debate. It really wasn't about Pence versus Harris. It's about Trump versus Biden. So
yeah. I think Pence dropped the ball, especially early. Well, his opening statement when he mentioned Joe Biden might know something about plagiarism. Yeah. That was like, oh man, that was probably the best line of the night, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like,
good.
So I was hoping that was the Mike Pence that we were going to get for the entire debate. Like I was hoping he was setting the tone. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he didn't, kind of drop the ball later on. I think especially when, like, very frequently, his answer to almost any question was, Joe Biden's going to ban fracking. Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes.
Yeah, yeah. There was one very awkward one. Let me see. What was it about? Do you think? Susan Page asked Mike Pence if he considers climate change an existential threat, and he just goes, "Well, you know what? Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes," and yada yada yada. And yeah, so he kind of had this way of avoiding answering questions directly, but I mean, Kamala Harris did as well. Especially on the Supreme Court thing we were just talking about. So that kind of went both ways.
Yeah, it's because you mentioned it. I just want to back up a little bit. As it just strictly in regards to Kamala being showcasing herself as fit to hold the office of president. One thing that has always bothered me, I don't think I'm ever going to get over it. Frankly, it's like we had a whole presidential Democratic primary, and America all came together, and we all decided she is not qualified to be the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Right. So it's right. And I mean, regardless who wins, Trump or Biden, it's going to be the oldest president this country has ever had, and so the vice presidential pick should be of utmost importance, and to select someone who was at the very bottom tier of the candidates is terribly unwise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. She was doing very well early on, and this was after she called Joe Biden a racist, essentially, on the debate stage. She didn't use that exact word, but it was a very strong implication that Joe Biden was racist. So that was a missed opportunity for Mike Pence. Why didn't he bring that up? How could you serve as vice president to someone who you think is a racist and a sexual predator? She also said that she believed in the woman who was making those accusations against Joe Biden.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're just willing to just believe just because somebody says something, the implication is then that she believes Joe Biden is a sexual predator. Pence missed a big opportunity in not bringing that stuff up. What was the other point that I was going to make? I don't.
Fit for office.
Point there. Fitness for office. Geez, Jeremy, I don't know, man. You
Yeah.
take over, save me here.
Yeah, yeah, go. I guess going back to Mike Pence here again too. I was expecting a Tulsi Gabbard type moment, right? Like something that Mike Pence was going to bring
Mhm.
to the table that was just going to completely put her under the bus, and and there's like nothing that she could like defend herself from, such as Tara Reid, or the yeah, accusing Biden of racism during
Mhm.
the busing scandal. I mean, man, those were like two topics that like you really could have railed home.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah,
I, and
I
I think, well,
go ahead.
I was at the the question was brought up during the debate about whether or not the vice president, whoever's up there, is fit for office. It was the question was asked in the frame of the age of the president, and that's something that Mike
Mhm.
Pence definitely could have dropped a bombshell onto, that the American people have already decided that you're not qualified.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember what my other point was going to be. I actually thought it was kind of fishy when she dropped out, when she did, because she had a surge in the polls. Um, and then the next debate, she tried pulling the same thing against Joe Biden, and people didn't like it the second time, and she started to slip. But still, she was like she was ahead of some other people who were still in the race when she decided to drop out. And I kind of felt at that time that maybe she was approached by people in the DNC that said, "Hey, we'll make you the vice president if you drop out now," because there were a lot of people at that time in the race, especially in the so-called moderate lane, where she kind of straddled that moderate and progressive lane. I could see, I could see people within the DNC. This is pure speculation, right? But they needed to narrow down that field, and because otherwise Bernie Sanders would have won this race.
Yep.
So I mean, I could, you know, see her having been approached by people within the DNC saying, "Hey, um, whoever wins this, we'll make you the VP." Um, and it just kind of like, I don't know, adds to the whole thing that Joe Biden has handlers. He's not really in charge, even though he kind of said that he is the Democratic Party in the last debate. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
just a random conspiratorial thought there.
No,
Um,
I mean, there definitely was some backroom dealings with the DNC for sure. I did think it was rather suspicious too when she dropped out so early. I think the official story was the campaign ran out of money,
yeah.
which may or may not be true. Um, but I mean, like the way that there was a coordinated effort to suppress or to split the vote from Bernie Sanders, right? So like whenever, I mean, it was a very coordinated effort when Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropped
Mhm.
out, and then like Warren was hanging in there,
Yeah.
like to really pull those votes away from Bernie, and then as soon as he was successful in doing that, then she dropped out too.
Yeah. Um, I actually think Trump even said something about that recently about how, yeah, there it was during the last debate. He even said how Pocahontas, kind of took it away from Bernie, and it's the only reason why Joe Biden is the nominee. Um, yeah, wild. What'd you think of Susan Page?
She did excellent. I have nothing bad to say about her. I also don't have it. I still don't have anything bad to say about Chris Wallace either.
Yeah.
Um, I thought I thought they both did excellent jobs.
To be honest with you, I wasn't that impressed with Susan Page. I thought that number one, just about every question I actually thought was framed in a way that was um, against Trump and Pence. Which kind of made it in an unlevel playing field and possibly harder for Pence to debate well, which I think he achieved no problem, as I was saying. And if anything, that kind of plays into why I think Pence really had a great debate performance. But yeah, I mean, right off the bat, she was basically saying that the administration's response to the coronavirus has been a massive failure, which I think in a lot of ways it has. But that was built into the question, and she did that a lot within her questioning. Um, Made Trump and Pence look like science deniers, and you know, Kamala, what do you respond to that? I thought her questioning was kind of one sided, and also whenever Pence just kept on talking and extending his answers like 25 seconds beyond the cutoff point, just saying, thank you, Vice President, thank you, Mr. Pence, thank you. That doesn't do it. You really got to start. I thought Wallace was a little bit more forceful in getting Trump to stop talking, or at least making it harder for listeners to hear what the person's saying, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that's very valid criticism. I would only say that perhaps that the incumbent administration perhaps is always deserving of the tougher questions.
Mm. Yeah, that's a fair point. You might be right on that, but definitely worth noting. I thought the questions were a little bit more critical of the current administration.
Yeah.
Were there any mistruths that stuck out at you?
I mean, I can't say it with I can't say with certainty. Whenever Mike Pence would say that Joe Biden's going to ban fracking, that was an outright lie. And that did. All right. So coming into this debate, I already knew who Kamala Harris was and how she debates, and recently with the whole Democratic primary, so I knew what to expect from her. I already knew as a person I didn't care for her, so my bias was going to weigh against her regardless. But Pence being disingenuous and outright lying, given at least the media narrative or the story of like the moral character that this man embodies, definitely rubbed me the wrong way.
So you're saying that, so the narrative right now is that, Joe Biden has said he wouldn't ban fracking. But hasn't Harris said in the past that she would ban fracking?
How many millions of dollars do you think their campaign has received from the gas and pipeline industries? Like that,
I have no idea.
Right, I'm sure it's in the tens of millions of dollars, right? If not now, at least when Biden was in the administration with Obama. I think there is close to 0% chance that they outright ban fracking in the United States. I just don't see it as a feasible option. Could our fracking practices be improved upon? Sure, absolutely. But I don't think that the powers that be, the oil companies, would allow something like that to actually happen.
Yeah. I had thought that in the past, Harris had said that she would ban fracking. I'm trying to find it right now online as I'm talking. But what stuck out to me during the debate when this came up was Pence brought it up. You guys are going to ban fracking. And in response, she was very clear. She said, Joe Biden will not ban fracking. She didn't say anything about herself, which really stuck out at me. And as we know, Joe Biden is an old dude. There's a very good chance that Harris could end up becoming the president either during Joe Biden's first term, or she could be the Democratic nominee in 2024. So, again, I'm trying to look up online Harris's past stances on fracking. I forgot to have this ready, but pretty sure she has said in the past that she would ban fracking.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to find it. Yes, but I think it's also I think even if it was a policy that she was running on, actually getting something like that across the finish line, I think is very difficult. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you imagine the House and the Senate? Even if the House and the Senate are both controlled by the Democrats, banning fracking passing either house. Right? It seems like too big of a task to me.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't think you could do by executive order unless you declared like climate change a national emergency and did like some very draconian and authoritarian measures.
Hmm. There are concerns about fracking. I
Yeah,
mean, they're saying it's creating earthquakes in places that didn't have earthquakes before.
yeah. Maybe should it be? Probably.
Yeah.
As a shit. But I think it's given the influence it has, and with in terms of the lobbyists that exist, in the quote unquote swamp. I I I just don't think that. I mean, during our lifetime, will we see a ban on fracking? I think that's probably the better question. Will the Biden-Harris administration ban it? I highly doubt.
Hmm. All right.
Just like when they say that, like they listen to the scientists. No, they fucking don't, right? So like they listen to the scientists when it's convenient for them. Like Biden and Harris and the Democrats are not the party of science. They are the party of science when they want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I mean that kind of speaks to the whole issue over the vaccine, right? If we come out with a vaccine while Trump is still in office or before the election, that's not going to happen. I mean, too soon. Um, but she was basically saying that if Trump says we have a good vaccine, she's not going to listen. But if the scientists do, then maybe she would. But also at the same time, some of these scientists are working with the Trump administration. I don't know. There's some question there over whether Biden and Harris would support a vaccine if it comes out before the transition. So yeah, they support science, but when it benefits them, I mean it's the same thing. Obviously, with the Republicans, possibly even amplified a little bit. Um, Something that I caught, and I know you caught too, because you texted me about this during the debate, was the when Harris was talking about the manufacturing recession. She basically said that Trump's trade war with China cost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. That's not true. And I knew that was not true. You know, I didn't know the exact numbers, but you know, the trade war, I mean, it hurt farmers. Yes. I mean, there was hurt here. It wasn't really good for the stock market. Every time there was a trade dispute, the market went down. But overall, the market's done pretty well under Trump, and so has manufacturing. There has been a net increase in manufacturing jobs during the Trump administration. Um, when the virus first hit, I think everything kind of took a nosedive, including manufacturing. And when Harris is talking about a loss of manufacturing jobs, that was really just temporary losses due to this virus. Before the virus, I think I had seen Pence said during the debate that they added 500,000 manufacturing jobs. I tried getting the exact number. That was on the high end of what I saw. And on the low end, I saw something like 150,000 manufacturing jobs were added pre-COVID. Either way, the Trump administration is way in the green when it comes to adding manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the claim that Kamala made that we are in a manufacturing recession is untrue. There is what's called the PMI. It's just this manufacturing index. It's very clear that if the PMI is below 50, we are in a manufacturing recession. And we are at, last time I checked that we were at 53, which is not a recession.
Yeah.
So all right, so here's the graph here. We were April, May. Yeah, you could definitely say that we were in a manufacturing recession, but just then and only then.
Yeah. It was a V recovery. It bounced right back really hard, real fast, right?
Right. So if we zoom this graph out and show even going back here, we are at 2017 levels essentially. So I mean, manufacturing. I mean, definitely as an American manufacturer myself, it's something that's very important to me. And I mean, there were some shops that did that were not able to make it. There definitely were some jobs lost
Mhm.
permanently. Um, but by and large, it comes down to like what you make. What is your company's specialty, which dictated whether or not you were going to be sticking around. Like if your company was focused on making goods and products that are recession proof, you're okay. But
Mhm.
if let's say, for example, let's say that your company um, manufactures components for railroads and rail cars and like nothing else, you got hit really hard.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, like I'm not entirely sure what the condition is of rail is now, but as soon as there were, as soon as the stock market crashed, stuff was stopped being imported into the ports, things were not being loaded into trains, uh, products were not being moved across the country like they were. Um, that put a lot of people under. Um, I think also stuff with automotive. Um, that they were not moving cars off the line like they were pre-pandemic. So if that was your bread and butter, yeah, you took that one on the chin, man. But if you were doing stuff, if you were more focused on medical equipment, if you were military, um, you were golden.
Yeah. And some companies were able to quickly change up their game plan. Like I know Ford started making ventilators and stuff. Um, if you have the capability to do that, then things were pretty good for you. I heard a story today on NPR I was listening to earlier. They're talking about Etsy, and Etsy is actually the best performing stock in the S&P 500 for 2020, and that's because once the recession hit, um, they were a lot of the people on there. First of all, a lot of people lost their jobs and needed to come up with new ways to make money. And a lot of people decide, hey, I'm going to make arts and crafts and sell it online. And Etsy is the perfect vehicle to do that. But also, there was a mask shortage early on, and making masks, cloth masks, is like the perfect thing that could be done within a home. My friend's mom actually was making masks for a while, and boom, Etsy is the place to sell your masks that you made at home, and it's the place. It was the place for people to buy masks. So a lot of these people who may have already had shops set up in indoors, maybe they were making shirts and hats and stuff. They had the ability to change on a dime and make masks. A lot of those people did very well during the recession, um, or during the downturn, whatever you want to call this COVID crisis. And as a result, Etsy as a platform has done very well as a company. Um,
Yeah, that's where
but
I got my first the very first cloth masks that I purchased online were from Etsy.
Really? Wow, wow. Um, yeah, interesting.
'Cause, man, they were hard to find. Well, after right after, they decided they were going to stop lying about the effectiveness of masks. They were
Yeah,
just
that was weird.
they were so hard to find. And
Yeah, just give it to us straight. Tell us, please. Government should always be honest with the people. Doesn't matter if we're talking about the Trump administration trying to not prevent people from getting too out of control. I'm referring to the Bob Woodward book, where Trump basically said that he knew how bad the virus was way back in February or January, but didn't do anything. Although he did shut down travel from China at the same time. Um, you can't be worried about people panicking, because frankly, uh, we have chaos now, and the past few months have been chaotic. It was just a matter of time, and people probably would have been able to prepare a little bit better had the president just given them the straight truth way back when. Um, but also Team Biden and Harris. They got to be open and honest about what they're doing with the Supreme Court. Just be honest with this. And the mask thing, yeah, that was just ridiculous. I mean, obviously masks help. I mean, you got to be a real Looney Tune to think otherwise. But because early on they were worried about mask shortages, they didn't tell us the truth. And now there are still people pointing to that, saying, you see, masks aren't good. It's all about control.
Right. Yeah, it permanently damaged your credibility.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, the Trump administration does it all the time, but that one in particular was, I mean, I'm not sure if you can. It was Orwellian, right? That how they just completely changed their statement or their position on it, and we saw it even again recently with whether or not COVID can be airborne, right? And in terms of transmission, like it was up on the website for a second, they took it back down. They were saying, well, why'd you do that? And they were like, well, the HHS told us we couldn't put it on there. It's like, what? Like, you didn't know what to believe, and it's just so damaging to the credibility that I think for even if the Trump administration is perhaps treated unfairly in the news, which of course they're going to be treated unfairly like on fucking MSNBC, right? They're not going to give him a fair shot,
right?
He doesn't help himself out whatsoever, right? It's having a CDC that doesn't cooperate with the HSS. That's
right. I mean,
it's so stupid.
It is. I mean, if you're going to be holding events at the White House with people not wearing masks, hugging and kissing each other on the cheek and stuff, and all this stuff, potential super spreader events, you at least better be able to show all the negative tests of everybody at that event, and we still don't know when the last time Trump had a negative coronavirus test. And that's probably because he was not being tested every day. I mean, if you're at least gonna, be casting doubt on masks and publicly encouraging people to continue to gather, I mean, at least at the minimum, you should be getting tested every single day and be able to tell that to the American people. I might not be wearing a mask, but I know I'm safe. I was tested this morning, and the guy next to me, he was also tested. We're all in the clear here. They can't say that because they weren't doing the testing. I think Mitch McConnell even said something recently, like he's been avoiding the White House because
since August.
Yeah, fucking crazy. I mean, and why has he been so quiet about this? I mean, he that guy. I really hope. I hope he loses his re-election. He's up for re-election right now.
Oh, he's going to stop McGrath.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think he's got to go. He put politics ahead of lives, essentially. He should have been calling out the White House on how they weren't handling the virus very well and taking it seriously. He was one of the few people who Trump possibly would have listened to because, frankly, it's the most powerful senator, most powerful Republican senator. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, whether or not the Senate votes on Amy Coney Barrett, it all comes down to whether or not McConnell wants to hold the vote. So, I mean, this guy has got tremendous weight. He could have got the White House to take this virus a little bit more seriously.
Agreed. But yeah. He's an absolute terrible human being, a terrible politician. But man, yeah, the people of Kentucky love him.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I think if I will always think that if Mike Breuer had got the nomination for the Democrats, he would have just ran game. Unfortunately, he performed terribly.
Yeah.
As not only did he get completely annihilated by Amy McGrath, but I mean, even Booker, Charles
Yeah.
Booker. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was close between McGrath and Booker,
Hmm.
and Breuer was just
Yeah.
blown out
And
the water.
yeah, I mean, there's a chance he siphoned some votes off of Booker too, which is kind of a bummer because Booker probably would have been even a better candidate than McGrath.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But man,
Mhm.
what's so weird about that election too is it's like I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars have been spent so far, but it's tens of millions of dollars being spent in vain.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it's one of the most expensive elections in this country's history as far as the Senate is concerned. This is all going to be wasted.
Wow. Um, but you know who is at serious risk of losing his seat? Lindsey Graham. I don't know if you've been following that at all, but he's in a really tough race over there. And he's also one of the most powerful Republican senators, and he could be gone in a few months.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of Mitch McConnell. I think in terms of public opinion, like the country um, generally, not from Democrats, of course, but I think conservatives in general have a favorable opinion of Lindsey Graham,
Mhm.
and probably not so much of Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. Although I myself, I'm kind of neutral, especially in relation to how I feel about McConnell. I used to like Graham a lot more when John McCain was still around, and then I felt like once McCain passed away, Lindsey Graham lost his moral compass in a sense, and he was very critical of the Trump administration early on. But once
Yeah,
McCain passed, he became golfing buddies with Trump and kind of started drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, I think. And he essentially is now a Trump Republican, whereas before he was part of the old guard. Um, so yeah, I kind of lost a little bit of respect for Graham, I think, but I still like him more than McConnell.
yeah, yeah. You're completely right about the change in character on Lindsey Graham.
It was
I
so
think
apparent.
yeah. I think regardless of if you're a Republican, you definitely want Lindsey Graham on your side because I mean
Yeah.
if he is on your side, he is very loyal and will go to bat for you to the ends of the earth.
Hmm.
He was, um, but yeah, to see him, you know, lay down to Trump was yeah. Everybody was well, unless you're a Trump guy, but uh, yeah, folks like myself are very disappointed. You know,
Yeah.
same thing with I mean, with everybody. I mean, Chris Christie, Rubio, Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
I mean, Ted Cruz especially. My
Lion
God,
Ted,
yeah,
Lion Ted.
talking shit on his wife to his face,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah,
man, like, how do you forgive that? You fucking
yeah.
pussy. Like,
I think he just came out with a book on that. I'm actually like considering should I get the I just got a subscription to audiobooks.com and it's a great service. Um, they are not sponsoring our show here, so you know I'm telling the truth. And basically, you pay a subscription. I think it's like I don't know, $14 a month, and you get 2 books a month. Um, and I spend a lot of time in my car driving around, and I just been listening to these audiobooks. I'm considering getting Ted Cruz's new book because I think he answers that question why he ended up voting for Trump despite all of what happened. It's called like One Vote Away or something. I don't know. I may or may not. I'll definitely let you guys know if I do decide to get it. But part of it is too. I just relocated to Texas about a year ago, so Ted Cruz is now my senator, and I want to learn a little bit more about him because he's up for reelection in 4 more years now. I think he was just reelected 2 years ago, so we got some time. But I still want to start forming a more solid opinion on him. So yeah, I got time to do my research.
yeah, how's it feel knowing that you're going to have Beto O'Rourke on your ballot again sometime in the near future?
I don't know if we will, man. I think he really sabotaged his career with that. We're gonna take your guns away. I mean, maybe
Oh
if
yeah.
he might have to move to California or something and run. But I think I don't think he's running for anything in Texas.
I forgot about that actually. Yeah, that's a good point. I think yeah, um, maybe he could do like state senate or state house.
Yeah,
But yeah, those gun remarks definitely were the wrong thing to say if you're running for the
right.
U.S. Senate in Texas.
Yep, yep. But I mean, Texas
Well,
is starting to trend blue.
I was about
It's
to, yeah, that's all those people coming in from California,
mhm,
man.
mhm.
It may
We
not be
have
over for him.
our other senator is up for re-election this year, John Cornyn, and he's got a pretty tough opponent, MJ Hager. I don't know all that much about her, but she's like Amy McGrath. She's a military veteran. I got to do more research on her, but she seems like a very worthy opponent. I'll put it that way. I like it when people have military experience and they're running for office.
Yeah,
They don't tend to bullshit really. They're to the point. They're honest. Um, you're kind of more assured that they're in it for the right reasons, not really just for a power trip. I mean, because if you're a soldier, you are following orders. Usually you're not in charge. Everybody answers to somebody else in the military. So it's chances are if you served in the military, you're the type of person that just wants to serve your country. So I like seeing those types run for office. So within the next few weeks before election day, I'll probably give you some more information on that, what I plan on doing regarding that. Haven't made my mind up yet.
all right. Anything else that we should touch on tonight?
Uh, I think here's probably a good place to end it. But do you have anything else, or I guess we're at the end, huh?
Yeah, I think we kind of cleared it all out. I guess
Where
I mean, unless you wanted to go back like to the very beginning and talk more about the Whitmore situation, but I think we gotta I think we kind of
Yeah,
got
I
it.
mean, did we miss anything regarding that? I know we're
Um,
kind of we're kind of fast on it,
yeah,
but
that's I mean, like we didn't talk about the Boog,
the
um, uh,
Boog. Yeah, all
the
right, let's go.
Boogaloo.
Let's go there. Who the hell are the Boogaloo? What is Boogaloo?
The Boogaloo Boys is a right leaning, I guess you could refer to as extremist group that wants to bring upon a civil war to overthrow the American government. So there is not one type of a Boogaloo boy, have you? There are many types. Um, the Boogaloo boys originated on 4chan on the K board, um, and they are rooted originally in some very neo-Nazi, very far right-wing stuff. Stuff of the like the Turner Diaries were a part of how they kind of how they came up with their ideology and the set the framework for the race war that they wanted to implement. But the thing about 4chan too, a lot of it is satire. So like you see some crazy stuff on there, and you never know if it's real, if it's a joke, if it's satire, if that's what they really mean, right?
Mm,
Um, but yeah, the movement continued to grow. From there, just became many things. So you still had some of the like the Day of the Rope, neo-Nazi types, but it also gained a lot of traction with libertarian minded folks too. Um, and a lot of people, I guess, that fall under the more extreme versions of umbrella of libertarianism, especially anarcho capitalists and just straight up anarchists too.
mhm,
Um, but it's being rooted in 4chan is something that they have like never really been able to shake off, and the media has always beat them over the head and labeled them as uh, white supremacist, which for some of the members it is true, for others it's definitely not.
mhm.
But just like um, very similar to Black Lives Matter and Antifa, in the way and that they don't have a centralized leader, right? There's not one guy at the top of the Boogaloo calling the shots, saying, "Hey, this is what we stand for. This is what we do. This is what we're about." No, it's just like this. You have these different groups, these different sects that all have different goals and different ambitions. Um, so I guess you could say the one thing that they all have in common is wanting to overthrow the government, and the means of how they get there is different, and then what they do afterwards is also very different too. Um, so yeah, the gentlemen that were arrested in the governor scandal definitely do appear to be part of the Boogaloo movement, and I think it just goes to show you that there's like this movement is becoming something more than just an online chat room, right? It's you have seen the guys in Hawaiian shirts at the protest. Um, there were those security guards that were murdered in California. Um, so it's becoming something that is worth paying attention to.
So the Wolverine Watchmen, they were Boogaloo essentially.
Mm.
They're a
Yes.
group. They're a group within this larger group, and so there's probably a ton of different independent militias that all consider themselves Boogaloos, Boogaloo
Right.
boys, but they don't all have the same leader in a sense. They have leadership is more localized.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, it definitely is concerning too that that every militia member knows about the Boogaloo, right? It's a um, every survivalist, every prepper, um, they are aware of it, and that's like that. Those are the circles that this group is like embedded in. So like it's not uncommon to meet a Boogaloo that is either a prepper, a survivalist, or sometimes a neo-Nazi, or these other extreme ideologies or positions that one could have. The one that I personally knew in my life was a anarcho capitalist who wanted to bring upon a civil war where we overthrew the government, and then to where free market just like controlled everything, except that like society existed in like a pre-industrial age type of like way of life. It was very strange.
That's absurd.
I know. yeah, he was a wild dude. But yeah, it's I mean, like no real rule of law. No constitution, no borders, no no rights, anything like that. It was just really, it was anarchy in its most pure form what this guy was after.
So I could see why some libertarians may be attracted to that, but libertarians believe in government, just limited government. There is, the Libertarian Party is in no way about overthrowing our current government. Maybe they want to oust the duopoly that's in charge, but this is something else, a whole nother movement that's gaining prominence, and they have hell of a name, the Boogaloos. I'd love to know where that came from.
It came from a joke. It was something to do with like an 80s breakdance video called the Electric Boogaloo.
Nice, Electric Boogaloo. I like that even more.
Yeah. But there's like one thing to really keep in mind is when it comes to these, like if you want to get into like how these people think and how they operate, is they regard Timothy McVeigh as an American hero.
Because he was attacking a federal agency. Yes. Was it the IRS?
It was the FBI, I believe.
The FBI. Okay. That's wild. Now, let's contrast them with the Proud Boys for a moment, because are the Proud Boys considered Boogaloos as well?
No, I would definitely not say so.
Okay,
Like no way at all.
no,
Like completely different. It's like
because the Proud Boys, they don't want to take down the government. They, if anything, want to prop up Donald Trump's government,
right.
right?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
like, I guess they are very anti-socialist. But yeah, they are not calling for civil war or an
Mhm.
overthrow of the government. And they're also not calling for the death of police officers either.
Right.
Which is also like very common within the Boogaloos.
Yeah, that's strange. And there's some. I mean, that's overlap. The far right and the far left, the Antifa folks. Um, do you think these Boogaloo groups? I know we're calling them far right radical extremist groups, but I mean, could they also be far left Boogaloos?
I mean, like, are there more than zero of them? Probably, but I think I don't think so, man. And just because of like the emphasis on capitalism and the the embodiment of the rugged individualism that they see as such a core and important thing for each person to adhere to. Um, that is just the complete opposite of what um, most leftists and especially any extreme leftist
Mhm.
position is. So I just don't think there's any way to box them in to be left leaning. Uh, sure, that's. I mean, could there be? I mean, like, all right, just like, so does it exist? Like, are there anarcho socialists? Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, but nobody that matters. Are there anarcho communists? Yeah, sure. There's been literature um, written about it, but yeah, these are not the types of people that are in the Boogaloos to in an effective manner to shape the way or to shape the ideologies of what they're about, right? Like um it's like they have a common interest with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and that's why you'll see some overlap and interaction every once in a while. But by and large, um, they have very different end games or very different end goals.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like
Interesting.
I would say for the most part, I'm not going to speak for the entire Boogaloo movement. For the most part, yes, they do want an overthrow of the police state. They too also want the police abolished. Um, but there is also that there a very meaningful percentage of the Boogaloos that do want to make the Turner Diaries a reality. And if the Turner Diaries, for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it was a novel written in the '60s, I believe, and it's a novel. It's a work of fiction that describes how white Americans rise up and um, kill every non-white on the planet, essentially, and create a not only an ethno state but an ethno planet.
Jeez.
And that's the Turner Diaries have influenced a lot of extreme libertarian folks in the past too. Timothy McVeigh, for example, um, and I mean it's had a huge influence on the extreme right. So it's something to be aware of and to take into consideration whether or not you support um, these folks or not. Um, it's it's not good.
Yeah.
I don't see any positive outcome um, by supporting these individuals and what they're after. Like regardless, like take away the white supremacy thing whatsoever, but trying to bring upon a civil war is
Mhm.
deeply concerning.
So, do you think that this attempt to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer was an attempt to start this so-called civil war?
So the guy who I used to know that was involved with these guys, basically, like in I guess kind of in his words, that the rest of the movement is sitting around waiting for it to spark off, and like once it gets kicked off, like once there's like this big movement of like if someone does something crazy, it's going to activate everybody, and then
So
whatever
right now they're all standing by.
yeah, standing by.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
That was good. But yeah, so that's indeed what they're waiting for.
Damn.
That big kickoff.
Yeah, so that potentially could have been the kickoff. That plus the election and all the uncertainty around the election. Who knows how things would have spiraled out of control? I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. These are not pro-Trump people, and by and large in general. Yeah, the far right, like the extreme far right, really doesn't support Trump at all anymore. They think that he's done too much to help Israel, done too little to help white folks here at home. So like folks like the Boogaloo on the extreme far end, yeah, they don't give a fuck about him either. Yeah, his head, they're coming for him with the guillotine, just like the FBI and the deep state and your local law enforcement.
Wow. And it's just amazing that all these different factions exist. Scary stuff. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Man. But all right, I guess should we call it here?
Let's call it here.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We will be back next week after, I'm sure, what will be another eventful week. So until then, stay safe. And yeah, take care, everybody.
Yeah, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Please.
Yeah, do it.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Bye now.